going on? My name is Michael Hacker, and this is the Hacker Outdoors podcast. This is episode number 2, part 2, Man in a Boat, with tournament angler and all around good guy Joey McCormack. This is a follow up to the conversation we had last week where we continued to talk a little bit about fishing, the fall, and some techniques for catching some bass this season. So without further ado, let's jump right in it. So we're gonna bypass that conversation. I'll cut that out. Um,
That
so
was
yeah, was getting a kick out of a story you told and about Uncle Ron. Uncle Ron's both of our uncle. I unfortunately only got to fish with him once, and that was the first time I did trout fishing. He took us to a brook off, off the property on one of the neighbors' properties, and it was hand lining for these beautiful brookies, man, and they were ferocious. Like, you want to talk about a ferocious like creature? Like, you could have thrown in just a hook and you would have landed them because it saw something shiny and it wanted to kill it.
yeah,
Um,
it's up there is very pristine. It's kind of crazy
yeah.
how
Well, I found out that
gorgeous.
Pennsylvania actually has one of the most western herds of elk in the
Oh,
United States. Yeah. So
I believe it.
yeah, it's Elk County, Pennsylvania, and you can actually get an elk hunting tag. And I don't know if they'd let you if you're out of state or anything like that. I don't know how many they do, but Elk County, Pennsylvania, at
I
least.
don't think that's far from them actually. I
No,
think the county before Erie. Yeah, that's not too far from them at all.
yeah, they're
Uh,
good. I haven't been up there in years to camp, and it was when we did go up there, man, nothing like it. It was just so remote and vast and
yeah.
Sasquatchy.
Last time I was up there, his father was complaining that there were too many people on the river and it was getting too crowded. And maybe that whole day I saw like 6 canoes go by. It's like, damn tourists. But
He would have had a heart attack if he saw what it was like this summer, I'm sure, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, that was probably like 6 years ago,
Yeah.
and that was
When we
that
were
was
up there, we didn't see another soul, man. It was insane.
it's really insane. Once you get outside, I mean, I think a lot of people stay. What is that? The Allegheny Forest. Is
Okay.
that what? Yeah,
Yeah, Allegheny National Forest, right?
National Forest. I think a lot of people will camp in there, but they never make it that far towards them on the river. I mean,
Hmm.
it's really shallow. Last time I was up there, he had a new Ranger he bought, but he had a jet. What's it? A jet engine, so he could go over the real, 4 inches of water. You could zoom through.
That's
It
awesome.
badass. So like a normal bass boat and prop, I mean, you could do it, but it wouldn't be easy. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was watching Das Boat on YouTube, the Meat Eater show, and they had a boat with an outboard engine, and they were cruising up this river, dinging up that prop. Man, I was cringing.
yeah, like that Allegheny. I mean, there was one spot him and I went over. I mean, it couldn't have been more than 8 inches of water. And since it was a jet motor, just went right through it. I mean, if you had a normal motor with a prop, there's no way you would just be dead.
Well, so the jet engine boats are awesome, but they're only really good for situations like that, right? It's
Yeah,
not.
that's kind of what I know that's what they're for.
Yeah.
That real shallow river type of running. I mean, because like I said, there's parts like when you get up towards Tyne where he's at, that I mean, you could walk across and it's just above your ankle.
Yeah, we
You know?
walked across many times. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and I
That's
mean we
why.
caught tons of fish up there too in the shallows, which was nice. But it was amazing to me how shallow it was.
Remember, I caught that frogfish in Jersey this year at your little lake there. What, I don't know, 4 inches of water.
Yeah,
That,
about that, right? Thing was a
that was
hog.
yeah, that was a good one.
Uh,
It, that always amazes me how shallow they'll get. You don't think a fish would be in that shallow water of that size, but
yeah,
they're
and they did it when I told you when I was catfishing up there for my second time ever catfishing officially, and I caught just basically throughout the meet and let it sit out there, and I was bass fishing, and I caught a bass maybe 6 inches away from me in the water. It was cruising in the shallows in probably under a foot of water somewhere. Yeah, like
right.
4 to 6, maybe 7 inches of water. And it destroyed it. It was like an explosion because it was so shallow. It had no
Yeah, nowhere to go. But
to go.
cat,
Yeah, that was
it's
cool.
I mean, it's insane how shallow they will sit, especially those topwater bites when they blow up on it. It's pretty awesome. Yeah,
So
it's fun.
where are they sitting now? If let's talk about tips for the short term here for fall. You know, where should you be looking for these bass, and what should you be throwing? What's the technique?
So this time of year, a lot of people say fall is one of the tougher times to fish. They'll be eating, getting ready for the winter, fattening up. But you know, if you watch, like I was watching the Bassmasters were just down on Chickamauga. I think it's Chickamauga. They were just on the Chick this past week, and that's a body of water that 24, 25 pounds a day will win it, and their weights were like 12, 14. I think the heaviest was 18 for a 5 bag because they're just kind of cruising around eating bait. A lot of times in fall they'll start chasing the bait. The bait will go back to like the creek channels off the lake and like fishing the points and stuff. Um, Fall time, a lot of people like throwing moving baits, like swim baits, spinner baits, crankbaits, a lot of whites, chartreuse, shad colors will do it. And you can go out there and crush them, but it can be tough, because they can be cruising all over the place. It can be tough to find them, but when you do, I mean, they're out there. The last tournament I had was on the St. James River in Virginia, and the crankbait bite was on. I was catching them on the drop shot too, but the crankbait bite was on. What was funny, I was catching them on a Spro Little John, and it was white chartreuse, and it had like a little blue on the top. And they were devouring that thing. The thing was, I only had 2 of them. And at the end of the first day, I broke my second one. Actually, cast it, and it hit a rock and exploded the crankbait. I had another Spro Little John that was so close to that color, but didn't have the blue, and they wouldn't touch it. They would not touch it. They wanted that little bit of blue in there. I mean, that's how finicky they were that first day. But I'm going fishing Friday. And right now, I mean, I have chatterbait tied on, a spinnerbait tied on, crankbait, and the drop shot. A lot of guys, will go spinnerbaits this time of year, chatterbaits, anything moving that mimics like a shad colors, they'll go with. But you can never go wrong if you know where they're at, throwing finesse too. So
Yeah. I've moved. So like I've moved on from predominantly bass fishing like I do in the summer, and I've always done it. It's a fall in my mind. It's trout season, right? But my goal is to land a muskie, and I think that's it stays true with muskie fishing. I don't know. That's my opinion, at least, and everything that I'm reading is the colors and technique. It's not they're chasing the same fish, right?
They're all eating the same stuff. They really are. So and I've never been a big muskie guy. I've never caught a muskie, but I wouldn't see why the same colors and stuff wouldn't work. It's crazy. I like throwing a fluke a lot too during the spring because a jerkbait's another good bait to throw during this. I mean the fall, not the spring. Excuse me. But it
I was
is.
pretty successful with the jerkbait all summer long.
Yeah,
I do spinning it, depending upon once again the body of water and what's in there and the surroundings. It's been pretty tried and true. So
yeah. I love throwing the fluke or a fluke style bait. For me, it works pretty much anywhere. There'll be days it doesn't work, but it's been a pretty consistent bait for me to catch fish on. I like fishing in the fall. Like I do well with it, but you can have tough days.
yeah.
It can be tough. But it's one of those things. Moving baits. A lot of guys say moving baits, chatterbaits. That's a bait that's really bladed jigs. They call them really blowing up. I have good success with them unless I'm on the Potomac. If I'm on the Potomac, I'm just catching catfish on them. If you throw a jackhammer on the Potomac this year, you're catching a catfish. I mean, I must have caught about 100. It's pretty insane about it.
You told me that, and I was so mad because I'd been targeting catfish. It was on my list. It didn't even matter what kind of catfish I caught. I just wanted to catch one. I'd never, even by accident, had ever caught one before. And I think I had just been the night before your tournament on the Potomac, and I did everything right in my opinion and didn't catch anything.
Yeah,
And you're texting me when you get off the boat, and you're like, dude, you will not believe how many catfish I caught today. And I was just like, you did it. Basically, in theory, you shouldn't have caught any catfish, especially not in the middle of the day and not on what you were throwing, but it worked. And fish have a mind of their own. And I think that's important to say. Like,
I mean, that day I was out with Andrew practicing. I mean, literally, we both knew. I mean, we both fished the Potomac a lot last summer. And every time we would throw a chatterbait, it was catfish central. Yeah. It was the same. That thing would hit the water, and I would get a half a crank, and there'd be a cat on there. It was crazy. There's so many catfishes at Potomac that when we were down there, I mean, we literally at one point saw a school of like 20 swimming, just cruising along. I hate those things. I couldn't believe it took you that long to get one because I hate catching those damn things.
Yeah, I know you were making fun of me, man, and I gotta be honest. Like, I'm an early morning fisherman, and where I was going for the cats, it was like I was going at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, summertime, and it wasn't dark yet. But a couple weeks ago, I was there. Obviously it's getting darker earlier, and it was like the sun hit beyond the trees and was like beginning to set, and all of a sudden you just started to watch the line just go, it was like a switch went off, and the catfish became active. And I was happy as hell to see it. And the guy that I caught was a hell of a fighter. God bless anyone who goes out and just catfishes. It's a lot of patience and sitting around. I guess that's part of the fun. But when you do hook onto them, they can put up a heck of a fight. I saw a guy doing one on a fly rod. And it was a byproduct. He wasn't going for him. Right. He caught one, and it just, like you said, like a dinosaur on his line. The rod looked like it was about to break. I think that would be a cool thing to do, is to catch one on a fly rod, but without sight fishing for them, it's not nearly impossible because they're,
Sometimes I think when you go out targeting those fish, like you were specifically targeting catfish. That's why you catch them. Like if you're out there trying to catch a bass, you can catch cats all day.
Yeah, I bet you're right.
That's kind of how it works. For me, it's like if I don't want to catch that thing, I'm catching it. Yeah. Catfish aren't. I don't like them.
Well, they do. They're slimy. They've got their little spines or whatever behind their fins.
Like after you catch one, it death rolls your line. Looks like it's been slimed by a slimer from Ghost. So gross. And then you're retying, and it's just a pain. And you're worried about getting choked by that stupid ball. I don't. They're not my favorite.
I told Donna she should catch one just so she could see him, because she saw the video of the one I caught. She's like, that thing's really cute. And I said, yeah, they are. Like, they have soulful eyes, right? Like, they look back at you. And I think that's kind of like the allure for fishing for me, is like, we're big wildlife guys. We love seeing things, and you're catching something, which is the hunt. You get to bring it in and actually look at another creature in its face, something that you would never be able to see in person. Unless you were fishing or snorkeling or diving or whatever. Here you are, you're looking face to face with this little ancient looking creature that's a catfish with his whiskers coming out and his soulful eyes. And you're just like, okay, I'm going to put you back now. And I think I'm good. I don't need to do this anymore.
Yours was croaking, wasn't it, when you caught it?
Yeah, he was croaking. Yeah. Not as bad as I was up at a lake where we used to camp growing up. And there were these guys, they were coming back in their canoe, and I heard all these noises coming from inside the canoe. And I said, what did you catch? What are you going to cook? 2 catfish, this beautiful channel. And the thing was making like a harmony with this other blue catfish he had caught. And they were like singing back and forth. I'm like, this is terrifying. I don't know.
That would freak me out. Like catfish singing at night. That's some deliverance crap right there.
Right. Exactly. I was like, no, I'd put him back, man. Bad omen. There you get it. Yeah, no good.
It's like when you catch those croakers in the ocean, or whatever the hell they call it, they make the horrible noise too.
Yeah.
They croak. I mean, croaker. It's no. bad bass is my deal. You know.
Yeah. And so I always, at least in the lakes that I've always fished, growing up on close to the city, we'll say in northern Jersey, typically largemouth bass lakes or ponds and everything like that. And when everyone, you used to tell me about catching smallmouths, and I'd be like, what's the big deal? It's a bass. A bass is a bass is a bass, right? And holy cow, man, there's a big difference there. And if you haven't specifically targeted smallmouth bass, to anyone listening to this, and you're only a largemouth bass, person, definitely get out there, target them. I had the pleasure of catching a tarpon a few years ago down in the Keys, and uh, that really the captain of the boat I was on said to me, he's like, it's like a bass on steroids. And when you catch a smallmouth bass, and specifically on how you catch them and where you catch them, they tail dance on top of that water, and there's nothing like watching them fight. Smallmouth bass, it just fights, and the largemouth bass really just, he puts up maybe a second of a fight, and then he just kind of cruises to the shore or boat or whatever it is you're fishing from.
Yeah, not smallmouth fishing. It's just addictive. It's a whole other, you know, another thing. I mean, I love it, especially in St. Lawrence, you're drop shotting. Got light line, spinning tackle. You hook up with a 2.5 pounder, and think you have a beast on there, and it's just a 2.5 pounder.
Yeah.
It's nuts. I mean, I remember one time the Allegheny River. I don't know how long it's been, probably 5-6 years ago. I was out with Ron, and I threw a fluke out, and that thing hit the water before I even jerked it, and something hit it, broke my reel, snapped the rod, and we thought we had a muskie on, and it was a 5-pound smallmouth, and it was insane because he grew up on this river, and he's like, that's definitely a muskie. We're getting a muskie, and it was a smallmouth. I mean, just destroyed everything. It was crazy, like insane, absolutely insane how strong they are. I mean, largemouths, they'll put up a fight too, but not like a smallie.
No. One of my favorite stories, definitely my favorite freshwater fishing story, is from Uncle Ron, that you told me about him catching the muskie on the kid's rod.
Yeah, he caught just under, what was it, 48, 49 inches, muskie on it was just like one of those little kids rods, those little kids.
Like superhero rod or princess rod or whatever. Yeah, yeah.
He's out fishing with his, I think it was his nephew or his nieces, one of the two. And he hooked up with this huge muskie. I mean, he got it in, he got a mount made of it, everything. That blew my mind. That's a feat in the zone. Like I said, I've never caught a muskie, but I've been up there when he's been hooked up with the muskie, and those things are ferocious from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Just insane.
And I find that interesting, right? Because, it's in similar family to pickerel and northern pike, and a pickerel hits hard and then kind of just macho mans it to the boat or wherever you're fishing from, and kind of like the largemouth bass, where it's just trying to see what the heck's going on, and it doesn't put up much of a fight, maybe until you're trying to net them or get the hook out. But the northern pike I caught fought decent when he hooked, fought like midway into me reeling him in, and then he fought at the boat. He had like one more pull where he let out maybe about 10 yards of line, and then he swam right back to me, and it just went right in the net on his own. And it's hard to imagine that a muskie would fight harder than that, but I'm intrigued, and I look forward to catching one, and hopefully I catch it on video, because
those things get huge. I mean, they get big. I've never targeted them. Like I said, I'm just bass. That's my thing. But
get your ass up here, man. Let's go.
one off the quarantine list up there. I mean,
that's right. You guys got re-added, right?
I think we got re-added again. But up on that where Ron lives, Uncle Ron lives, those guys go out at nighttime trolling for those muskies. Like kind of like you would do for rockfish out here. How guys troll for rockfish.
Yeah.
They're doing muskies, and they're throwing these ginormous lures. I mean, it's something to be said about it. And it always blows my mind how they'll follow it back to the boat, and they'll do the figure eight. That thing will still eat it.
Well, that's like one of the scariest things, I think. I don't know. I told you my story. Like you're watching this. I was fly fishing at one of the lakes. I wasn't at all targeting muskie, and it was early spring. I was going after once again lake trout and my landlocked salmon, and I was fishing a little bit deep. I had my sinking line on, and um, I was reeling in. And I had this nice, decent sized pink and white fly on, and I got in within 10 feet deep, thereabouts, and maybe a foot away from my canoe, and I'm reeling in. I'm looking to see where it is. You're kind of hunched over the edge, looking down, and all of a sudden, out of the darkness, just came this head. Like looks looks up at me, looks at the lure or the fly, and just stares. And you're like, what the heck is
Yeah,
that? And
there's
it
that.
scares you when you don't think like, I had it in my head, like I knew I wanted to catch a muskie this year. And I was like, okay, you got to do the figure eight, or, some people say you just do the circle or the oval so that they have more space to turn because they are big creatures. But like that muskie stared at me dead in the eyes, like head like this, and just disappeared back into the darkness because he wasn't activated. He followed it right up to the boat.
Yeah, that
As
happens a lot with the chatterbait. Like I'll throw a chatterbait, and a lot of times the bass will hit that so close to the boat, and it startles you. It really does.
yeah,
I mean, we have like Loch Raven on the street. We have a ton of pike in there, and they'll do the same thing. They'll follow back to the boat and come up out of the dark like that and crush it. And it does. It startles you.
yeah.
It definitely can, especially when it's out of the deep like that. It's like a movie with like a sea monster or some crazy.
I mean, the lake was, I think where I was fishing, it was like 100 feet deep or 115 feet deep.
Yeah, that's spooky.
Yeah,
That's spooky.
you're like, holy cow! Like, what else could be down there? So we're coming up on the end here, Joe. I know you got a hard stop. I wanted to thank you for joining us today, and it was great talking to you. I'll link your Instagram account or whatever that social media crap is, right?
Yeah.
In mine as well. And I'd love to have you back on so we can continue maybe talking some fishing stories at some point in the near future.
Anytime. Like I said, anybody who wants to get out and start, fishing the tournaments, definitely give it a try. It's addictive. It will get in your blood, and that's all you think about. That's how it is for me. Like I'm chomping at the bit to be back out there competing. Like I said, it can be very humbling. You could be the guy who crushes it by you and catches fish all the time, but then you get out on these bodies of water and you'll have days where it just seems like nothing you do or throw is right. And it's very humbling. You have a long drive back home where you can sit there and pick apart everything you could have done different or done this or that, but it's something that's really addictive. So
Well, that's why they call it fishing, right?
exactly. Oh, it definitely is.
Oh, Joe, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I love you, and look forward to fishing with you soon. And look forward to having everyone leave comments below. Let me know what you thought, and we'll be back hopefully next week. Much love, and have a good night.
Thanks, Mike. I'll see you, buddy.
All right, brother. All right, so that is part 2 of the Hacker Outdoors Man on a Boat, episode 2 with Joey McCormack. Thank you for joining us this past half hour, and if you liked what you heard, please subscribe, leave a comment, and we'd love to hear from you. Give us a follow on Instagram at Hacker Outdoors and on YouTube at Hacker Brothers Adventures. And Joey McCormack can be found on Instagram at Joey McCormack81. All right, guys, we'll see you next week, and thank you again.